What's up, guys? Chimp here. Another very quick market update. It's been a couple days. Bitcoin's obviously been sort of chilling and trending around 108, 107K. And the question is, what's next? Which is always the question. And I've been pretty consistent in my stance that ever since this 124K top, like I'm pretty sure the top is in on Bitcoin. You see this bleed that's been continuing. And I think the what's the word? Like what is coming? What is coming in the next couple of weeks? What's coming in the next month or 2 months? And let's go over that right now. So obviously we've bled out. We had that Jackson Hole pump that bled out. Then we had another little pump that basically died out on Friday. And then now we've sort of chilled over the weekend and we've had we dumped, basically printed a fresh low just barely, right? Some would say this isn't this is an SFP, at least on short time frames. I don't think let's see what the hell that is. Some might say it's an SFP, which it could be on low time frames. I mean, clearly it got us enough of a bounce to go out and take out the highs as well. The question is what's next, and I still think a lot of the data points towards down. And I'll sort of play out my scenarios here. Now, clearly we've been going down for about 2 to 3 weeks at this point. And so I mentioned in my previous videos at any point we could see a pump. Bulls clearly still have like a decent amount of capital. So with this bleed down, like at 112 or even as high as something like this, like a resistance order block, probably possible. Like it wouldn't shock me. Let me put it that way. I don't think it's likely that we get to something like 118. I really don't. And I'll show you in a second why. But if I see 118, would it shock me? Not completely. I don't think we'll get there. More realistically, maybe this is like a more realistic resistance area. We might not even get there, right? This might be a top at 109, 110, 111. This might be the squeeze, right? And tomorrow we're heading back down. I don't know, but let's go over some of the data I'm looking at and why. Like again, like very low time frame. I don't know, right? In the next 12 hours or 24 hours, I don't know if we're going up or down. It's hard to say. But let's go over like some of the more macro data. So again, like I've talked about this before, and people have sort of shat on it, which is Solana. And I've said it, like every time this thing seems to pump, it's a red flag. And I lined it up with Bitcoin, and you could see it. Like this latest time it pumped to close to 220, Bitcoin topped at 113.5, right? And then we went back down. And every time I sort of think to myself, like, man, should I get bullish here? I just zoom out on the Solana chart, and I think like, why? Solana reset to 155 when BTC reset to 112. Bitcoin's now at 109.5. Solana is still at over 200. So again, I hate to use these things as quote unquote indicators, but one of the more things that I would like to have seen is this thing start to reset harder, right? Like one of the things that marks a bottom, in my opinion, is when you see some of the frothier shit or some of the scammier shit just unable to find a pump. And in this case, Solana's unable to find a dump, right? That to me is like super bearish. And some people might say, well, this is like some crackpot indicator or whatever. Look, the same thing applied for Ethereum 4 years ago. People used to always shit on Ethereum, right? Oh, well, Ethereum's pumping, that's the top, right? And it was the case. That is no longer the case, by the way. That Ethereum indicator, I think, is no longer the case. I think you have to look at the grift asset, which is Solana in this case, and use that as sort of a barometer. Now, what am I looking at in terms of why I'm bearish? So actually, let's look at open interest first. Bitcoin's at 110. I've mentioned this repeatedly in my videos, which is the last time Bitcoin was at 110, before we went through this saga, right, of going all the way to 124 and whatever, global open interest was sitting at 70. It's now, and I'm gonna delete this Bitcoin one. I don't think it matters much, to be honest. The Bitcoin one's up a bit, but I think like the broader one is actually more interesting. Bitcoin open interest was at 70 billion. It's now at not Bitcoin, sorry, global open interest was 70 billion, and now it's at 100, right? So there's 30 billion more in like positioning that's potentially gonna get wiped out. Like this to me is like a It's like someone going up a hill, and now you're trying to go up a hill, but you're carrying like 30 billion more. Like you're carrying a bag of sand behind you, and that bag of sand is super like half your body weight, right? So or more. I don't know. Like I've never gone up a hill with a bag of sand, to be fair. Um, so when I look at this, I'm thinking, who's gonna like bail out all these positions that are in the market? And some people might say, well, look, some of these might be shorts, whatever. I don't think so. Like I've been through plenty of these cycles. Definitely, there's some degen shorts. I'll show you that in a second. But for the most part, I think this is still a lot of speculative longs. I think there's still a lot of people that are stuck underwater from higher prices, which is why these pumps have been more muted. And I've mentioned this before, like bulls have the most money at the top. If we trend lower and lower, and if we eventually break structure, I think bulls are going to have like the market's going to have a lot of a harder time of even finding smaller pumps, right? And that's why these pumps are getting sort of smaller, right? Like when you really think about potential energy in this market, there was a lot of potential energy at 112, right? That's why you got a pump to 117, like this huge pump in one day, ETH pumped, Sol pumped, everything pumped. And then like now we're getting a squeeze. We'll see how high it goes, but that's why I said like I don't even know if it gets to 114. I don't, 118. I really don't think it gets to there. So I think bulls are sort of starting to run a little bit low on cash, or a bit lower. They're still flush. Um, so again, like this thing scares the shit out of me, and I'm gonna show you one last thing, and I'm not gonna make this video too long. I want to get this out before I have to head out. Um, Look, what's the reason why I think we could pump a bit? You have some semblance of people aping on like, Hyperliquid's obviously like the most retail flow exchange in my opinion. Like again, you have like one guy who's short, his liquidation's at like 110, 111. You've had this big short that's been sitting in the market with a lick at 116. So it's possible we take these guys out. But again, look at the long side on Bitcoin, right? Look at all of these positions. It's huge, right? All these longs. So many people are long. And that's why, like, I think ultimately, if we go up, like, it's gonna, be limited in time, and we're gonna go back down, and take out a lot of these positions. And I want to show one other thing, and this thing is very interesting. So we can go to the short side and see the top position, and look at our liquidation prices. And when you see a lick that's super far away, I think the odds are likely that that's some sort of market maker. So clearly, we have this degen lick at 116. I've talked about this about $200 million position. We have this other lick. I guess it's at 112. I don't know. I mean, I haven't gone and looked at his position. Yeah, I thought it was lower, but maybe he added margin. But again, now you go to the long side, and yeah, there's one guy who's long with a lick at 54. But like you look at a lot of these licks, it's like 100K, like 100, like basically around 100K, mid 100Ks, etc., etc. And again, like much more of the positioning here is a lot closer to the price of getting liquidated, right? Like in terms of just counting, right? Numerically, like 1, 2, let's ignore this guy, even though he could get liquidated. 3, we can even ignore this guy, right? 4, 5, 6, right? We go here. 1, 2, right? So again, showed you the lick map on Bitcoin. Like we can just go through a couple coins, right? Ethereum. Maybe this thing's gonna break on me right now. Actually, let's see. Let me click Sol. You gonna break on me? All right, let's try to refresh. I'll say one or two things also here while I wait for this to load. I will say there are definitely more bears on my timeline than there were before, which maybe gives a little bit more credence to getting a bit of a short squeeze. This is just anecdotal. There are more people saying we just walk away in September. September's gonna be a bad month. So I have seen more of that type of posts. So again, we'll see what happens. I don't remember when it was. Maybe it was last September where like we had a pump initially, and then people got long, and then we had to dump out back out. So anyways, we'll see what happens. I don't buy anything. Like a lot of people talk about monthly performances, past monthly performances. I don't buy into those at all. Like I think you have to approach the market. Zoom back out here. You have to approach the market differently for every cycle and whatnot. So I'm ignoring anyone who's saying like, well, sell in September and walk away, buy in this month and do this. Like, none of that stuff matters. Um, I might be wrong about this, but I saw something along the lines of like, if June is positive, July's always been negative with Bitcoin, and obviously that did not play out. Like July, we got a big pump. So any of this stuff you see like, oh well, this month has historically been this or that. Like, go flip a coin 12 times. You're gonna get like, go flip a coin that's skewed towards going up. You're gonna get streaks, right? Like, that's my whole point. Like, you're gonna get streaks and patterns that just from random noise. So don't be fooled by randomness, as Taleb would say. But anyways, we'll see what happens. I guess to summarize, low time frame, I have no idea. Could squeeze up a couple $1,000s more. Keep an eye on something like a Solana. If Sol goes and makes a new high, that's probably your sign to GTFO, right? If it goes to 225, 230, probably sign to GTFO. If open interest ramps up again, probably sign to get out. Otherwise, just going to keep an eye on it. I think eventually we're going to coil back down and take this out and actually liquidate a lot of these positions. But it doesn't have to be a straight line. And so mid time frame, I'm still leaning bearish. Obviously, I'm always reevaluating, but that's where I see the market right now. So anyways, guys, appreciate it. And until next time, take care.